Thanks very much for all of you. I really feel honored. I'm sure I speak for Mike as well. It really be our honor to be part of this dedication today on the RA-3. You can kind of see the accomplishments here by the Restoration Center. The restoration team here are just absolutely phenomenal. I believe this is probably the only photo A3 we'll ever see in a museum anywhere. All the rest of them have been lost in one regard or another. So this is really quite a treat. Quite a treat for Castle to be able to get a hold of this airplane and restore this and display it in recognition for all the photo air crews and maintainers that kept these airplanes going for years. The A-3, if anybody doesn't know, was originally designed as a nuclear bomber, carrier-based nuclear bomber, strategic nuclear bomber. Biggest airplane on the carrier, and it probably remains the biggest, heaviest, largest airplane to ever operate on a carrier. It was used in Vietnam as a tanker, along with the versions that supported electronic warfare, photo missions, and electronic surveillance. It's a great performing airplane. Probably in its day, it was one of the faster airplanes out there. It was really hard to keep up with. Even when it was retired in 91, I believe, is when they retired all of the A3s, the last of the A3s. It was still one of the fastest non-afterburning airplanes in the Navy. It was really hard to keep up with this thing. This one has kind of a unique history. It served in the Navy until in a VAP squadron. It was a 61 and it was one of the squadrons it served in. And in the late 70s, I believe it was retired from the Navy. It was given to Raytheon as a test bed. In the early 80s, Raytheon started testing the Patriot missile system on this airplane, and because it was an Army program, the Navy turned this airplane over to the Army and basically took it off their active records. And so this airplane served as probably the only jet aircraft the Army ever owned, if they even knew they owned one, until about the mid-90s somewhere. The Patriot missile system program came to an end. The airplane came back to the Navy, and then Raytheon started flying it again for some internal programs. This airplane was transferred out of Bedford, where Raytheon was operating it. They brought it out to California and consolidated it with our Raytheon flight test organization out in California. And then it was parked in Mojave for long-term storage, and unfortunately never flew again. So in 2009 is when Castle ended up getting the airplane from the Navy and bringing it up here to restore it. It's quite an airplane, quite a legacy, and I am just absolutely proud to have been one of the many, many air crew that were allowed to, permitted to fly this airplane. So, thanks for everybody for showing up here today.
doing?
Good.
So are we on our way to Disneyland?
We're on our way to Comfort Land. The end of the film.
Morning, Floyd.
Oh man, he's got something wrong with his camera.
He just broke it.
So any parting words of wisdom?
Yeah. Did you get that damn wing on?
Yes, we did.
All right.
Was there ever any doubt?
Yeah.
So you're gonna finish up today?
Yep.
On the way home. On your way home.
The impossible just takes a little longer.
Well, it didn't come off easy. It brought us a whole damn way. Yeah. I tell you, when you're away from home having fun, well, that's right.
That many rows of rivets on top. Bolts on top. You got that many rows of bolts.
Yeah, inside and outside. Yeah.
Okay, Paul, you can put it back together.
I'm going to give you a little history on the airplane itself. Bear with me because some of you are interested in this, some may not be, but after World War II, the Navy got into requiring a nuclear-capable airplane that could be based off an aircraft carrier in order to be able to keep the Russians in the Cold War in check. The airplane was specified that it had to carry a 10,000-pound nuclear weapon, which the Fat Boy that was dropped on Nagasaki was a 9,600-pound weapon, so the 10,000 pounds was there. The Navy was anticipating putting the airplane on the USS United States, which was a brand new class of aircraft carrier, and they specified a 100,000-pound airplane for that carrier. Now, to put this into perspective, if you guys looked at that relic SPD that Castle is going to tackle here, good luck with that, and some of the other World War II airplanes that are around, a 100,000-pound airplane was just not even in existence. There was nothing that big. Most of the carrier airplanes in those days were 15, 18,000-pound airplanes. So this was an order of magnitude bigger. Plus it was jet, which, oh my gosh, you know, that was brand new. The brilliant Ed Heinemann for Douglas was the designer who developed and they responded to the specification the Navy put out. And Mr. Heinemann, who was very astute in Navy, the way the Navy operated and the things that were going on, he did not believe the SS United States was ever going to be built post-World War II because it was too expensive to build. So he kept the airplane under 80,000 pounds, and they worked very hard to keep it below 80,000 pounds with the size of the airplane. The max gross weight of these guys, by the time it was all over and done with, was 78,000 pounds. So that was quite a feat for him to get that done and still meet the specs. And he turned out to be right. The SS United States got canceled, was never built. The airplanes had to be put aboard the Midway class carrier, which was a lot smaller than the SS United States ever planned on being. And so Douglas won the competition because everybody else's airplane was too heavy for the Midway. So this was Douglas's model 593-8 for all of you purists who want to know that kind of stuff, if you care. But in July 1949, a contract was given to Douglas to build this airplane. Now think about that. 1949. This airplane is designed in 1949. Ron flew the last airplane to Pensacola, made the last flight in the A3 to Pensacola in 2010. That's not too bad. That airplane lasted a long time. Some of the design criteria that turned out to be extremely successful was the high shoulder-mounted wing up top, because on the original airplane it provided fuselage space for the 10,000-pound bomb, for a big bomb bay to be in existence. And it had to be accessible in flight because in those days the weapons had to be armed prior to being dropped in flight. You didn't take off with an armed weapon. So a crewman, they had to depressurize the cockpit. Crewman had to climb in the back and arm the weapon. And so that bomb bay had access in flight. The sweep back of the wing is there because of the speed requirements. This turned out to be a .88 Mach airplane, which was, you know, I mean, totally unheard of. I mean, this is the days of piston-driven propeller airplanes, you know. So this was quite a step forward. The engine nacelles, the way you can see how the nacelle is hung on the bottom of the wing, they improved aerodynamic drag, were designed to facilitate maintenance, and it provided a way to use a different engine if necessary, and that turned out to be the case. The airplane was designed to use the Westinghouse J40. The J40 was unsuccessful, never became a production engine, and the engine was changed over to a J57, so the nacelle allowed that changeover relatively simply for the airplane to do it. First flight of the A3 airplane occurred at Edwards Air Force Base, October 28th, 1952. So these are kind of an old airplane here. The two prototypes were developed along with 12 pre-production airplanes that were authorized before the prototypes had even completed flight test. Additional 38 A3D-1s were built that were straight bomber airplanes capable of carrying the nuclear weapon. None of these airplanes had the in-flight refueling capability or any any really trick stuff. They were just bombers. As the airplane got into service, it was pretty robust, and it turned out to be pretty successful. It broke several distance and endurance records for the Navy because, you know, piston airplanes only flew so far. This thing could fly 5.5 hours at 400 and 500 miles an hour, so, you know, it was pretty successful. So several of the early ones were modified for various special type prototypes, including a photo airplane. The package that was in the photo airplane was relatively successful and was very useful, but it was one of a kind. So as the Navy continued, they developed the A3D-2, which had slightly bigger engines and a little more thrust, a little different wing structure and stuff. And some of the A3D-2 bombers, or most of the A3D bombers, were fitted as tankers. During Vietnam, the KA-3B, which was the tanker airplane, and the EKA-3B, which was an ECM airplane with a tanker package in it, these were Bombay airplanes, were the Navy's tanker of choice.